By the end of this video, you're going to have the 7 criteria that I like to use to analyze a project. Over the years as an engineer and a consultant, I've developed these criteria that I use to analyze any project. Whether that's a project that I'm putting together going forward, whether that's something I've been thrown into the middle of and it's all a confusing mess around me, or whether it's something we're evaluating that happened in the past to find out any lessons learned. These are the 7 criteria that I like to use to analyze a project and to make the analysis simple as well, because that's what I like to share on Engineered Upgrade. The sorts of tools and tips and tricks that make complex problems at work simple to hopefully make you a better professional. And that's why I've hand drawn these tools as well, because I find that complicated diagrams and strict procedures are too complicated to wrap your head around. Let's get back to the basics and really analyze our project in this case. So the first thing that I like to ask, the first criteria that I look for when analyzing a project is what the team is like. So I've got here a little organizational structure of a team of smiley faces to say, well, who's more senior to who? Who reports to who? Or is there a strict reporting structure? Is there a seniority that we need to worry about on the team? And this is our internal team. This isn't any client or external stakeholder body. We'll get to that in a minute, but this is our internal team. How does our team look? Who is responsible for what sort of thing? What sort of tasks are these people going to be responsible for? What are their strengths and their skills and their core competencies? What are they good at? So that's what I like to ask when I'm looking at the team. And I like to draw out an organizational structure like this one here to understand where people sit in the team. On a lot of projects I found, even where there may not be a strict management level in charge, or there may not be strict reporting lines, I often find that people will develop a seniority or develop a pecking order, I guess you'd say, that certain people will be looked up to for responsibilities or to make key decisions. And understanding that even with an informal org chart, and again, keeping these things informal will help you describe these later on, or to help you put together a formal report, an analysis report on the project. But if you can start informally to begin with, then it will help you develop your understanding of the project. And that's what I found I like to do. Keep things informal by drawing just a quick sketch of an org chart, a quick sketch of where you think responsibilities might be. And I always find that I can come back and change this later on. And I'm sure it does change as the project evolves. So understanding the team that's involved in delivery is the first thing I like to do when I analyze a project. Now, secondly, is to understand the tasks that are involved. Now, I'll skip ahead just to the last one quickly, that the purpose of the project is something we do consider here, but it's so important. And I find that it's a bit confusing to understand the purpose to begin with. Sometimes it's not entirely clear what the purpose of a project is. So maybe bear it in mind for now. But the second thing I do like to ask when I look at a project or when I'm given a new project to analyze is what tasks are involved with that project. What sort of work will be assigned to the team? Who will be responsible for which tasks within the team? What do those tasks involve? And we can start thinking about some of the other criteria that I like to use, the time and the cost, and you've probably seen them flashed up on the screen there. That as the project goes along, what sort of tasks are going to be delivered? Or what sort of tasks need to be undertaken to facilitate that delivery? So the third thing, after understanding the tasks involved, is to start thinking about the costs of the project. Do we have any budget? Do we have any requirements on how much cost is going to be spent? A lot of my work is consulting projects. So a lot of my costs are just the team salaries and maybe some travel to client offices. But understanding those team salaries, that a number of hours the team is spending on a project, is where my analysis of the costs come from. So to understand the costs involved when you analyze a project, I like to put together a graph of the costs. Now this might be referred to as an earned value model in other ways, but really it's just an understanding of what costs we've spent in the past, what money we've spent in the past, what money we're spending at the moment, and then what money we're going to spend in the future. So understanding the tasks first can be an important way to start thinking about what money is allocated to each task, how much money is allocated to each task. Now, the fourth thing I like to think about is the interfaces. I've called this interfaces, where it's thinking about us in the middle here in our team. What sort of prerequisite information do we take in? What sort of information was required to establish this project? Were there any prerequisite projects that were undertaken to get to where we are now? Is there anything that we need to happen first before we can execute our project or our tasks? Now, similarly to this, I also like to think about the interface with the stakeholders, how we interface with our external stakeholders. Now, this could be different people involved in the project, but outside our team. This can be the people that rely on the outcomes of our project, or these could be the people that also influence those prerequisites, the things that we need for our project to happen first. So I've drawn this here as a little smiley face because often stakeholders have their own organizational structures. I was doing a project for a client recently, a consulting project for a client recently, where our client project manager was reliant on the information from different technical parties within his team, within his company, but not within his team. So every time we gave him a technical deliverable, he had to go and get that reviewed by different stakeholders in his organization, different parties in his organization that weren't directly related to the outcomes of this particular project. And that was something that we had to be aware of, keeping other people happy inside our client organization that weren't directly involved in our project and our objectives. So something to think about there is your relationship with not only the visible stakeholder that you can see, the visible client or counterparty that you can see, but also who's behind them, who is influencing that person, what sort of influence do they have, or what sort of reliance do they have on other people in their organization, and how can that affect your project and your delivery. So that's what I like to think about in this interfaces. What other information is required for our project, or what are the third parties that we can maybe get an understanding of, who influence our key stakeholders, who influence our project, but aren't necessarily directly aligned with the objectives of our project and the purpose of our project, which I'll get to in a minute. Because the next thing I like to think about is the timeliness involved. So this is where we take those tasks and we think about what order do they need to be completed in. Is there a strict order? Can those tasks change over time? So I've got a couple of little diagrams I like to draw here, a traditional Gantt chart, or to think about, sometimes I like to think about the tasks as a circular effect. So for example, on this engagement with this client, the requirements changed and evolved as the project went. We had to take a more agile approach to meet the changing requirements of those complex set of stakeholders. So we were able to do so by maintaining a bit of an agile approach to those initial task requirements that we can then adapt to and consider over time. So to ask about the timeliness of a project when you're analyzing it, what sort of time commitment is required from the people involved? What sort of time commitment is required for those tasks? Are those tasks circular? Are they going to change? Are they going to rely on themselves being completed? Can something change with those tasks that have to be met? And then is that going to have an effect on time? So what is the timeliness of it all? Is there a certain order the tasks must be done in? Is there a critical path? So they're the sorts of questions I like to ask about the time aspect of a project when I'm analysing it. And then following on from that, I like to ask about the method that people are going to use. So often my projects can involve technical consulting by key specialists or opinion leaders or technical experts that we like to bring in to sell to our client. I mean, that's what I do as a consultant. And the method that those people are going to use to take out their tasks, the method that those people are going to use to undertake and to fulfill their tasks and create the deliverables for our client, well, understanding that method is one of the key things to the project. So how the project is executed, is it always going to follow the same path? Are there different branches to this sort of project? What sort of steps are going to be taken to deliver the outcome that the client's looking for? And so understanding the method that the team is going to use to deliver the tasks in the time available with the money, with the allocated amount of money as well, is some of the key. When asked to analyze a project, the outcome of your analysis is going to consider all of those things. And that's what I like to, that's what I'm trying to share with you here, the sorts of criteria that to look for when analyzing a project. And lastly, and if you didn't happen to do this first, is to understand the purpose of the project. What benefit is our project trying to deliver? Are we trying to make an improvement to something, make something more efficient, reduce costs, or improve our organization in some other way? So the reason why we're here, the reason why we're all undertaking this is the purpose. And often I've found when analyzing a project is that the purpose that people write on a report or the purpose that people write on a project plan may not be the entire picture. And that's kind of why I've left this until last in my list of recommended criteria, is because particularly once understanding the interfaces, your understanding of the purpose might change. So for example, on this particular project, our stated purpose and the reason for our engagement was to make this particular system more efficient, was to improve the reliability of this particular system for less money, so make it more efficient. However, when we started doing the work, we realized that our client, this one person within the client organization, they already knew what they wanted. And we were trying to find the right balance of accepting what they wanted to hear, but also convincing the other people in their organization that this is really the most efficient way to do it. So our purpose wasn't just to make this thing more efficient. It was to convince those third parties within our stakeholder organization, within our client organization, that this is the most efficient way. And so the true purpose of the project is about that convincing step. It wasn't about the making more efficient. And that's why I like to do the analysis of some of these easy questions to answer first. You'll probably see that I've walked through these 7 criteria from easiest to hardest, because things like what team is delivering the project is an easy question to ask. You can see the team members. To ask what tasks are involved, well, that's probably how you've put the cost together as well. So there's an understanding within the project team of tasks and costs, and they're easy things to answer. But then when you start asking about the interfaces or the method by which you're going to deliver it and how much time you've got available, and the purpose, these things become much harder. So understanding the true purpose of the project, even if it's just stuck in your mind what that true purpose is a great way to analyze the project. It's a great thing to think about when you're analyzing it, because you can always come through and translate that later on to the more palatable analysis, to the more palatable purpose, to help then stakeholders understand. Because once you have that true understanding, you can always translate it to something that's more convincing for whichever stakeholder you're reporting to. So if you're analyzing a project to then report to your boss on the status of it, and it's not your project, then by understanding the true purpose, you can then translate that to the best interests of the people that you have in mind. So they're the 7 things that I like to go through when I'm analyzing a project, looking at the team, the tasks, the cost, the interfaces, the time, the method, and the purpose, and preferably in that order as well. So if you found this video helpful and you're interested in more ways that I can help you, hit the like button, because it gives me a lot of data about what sort of videos you guys out there are interested in, and then how I can help you solve your problems. If you've got any particular problem, please leave a comment and I'll see what I can do about addressing it for you. My name's Chris, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video.